We begin this final hour of Fox and Friends with that news alert. Acting Secret Service Director Ronald Rowe will meet with law enforcement and members of the Secret Service in West Palm Beach today after former President Trump was targeted in a second assassination attempt while playing golf on his course in Mar-a-Lago, Florida yesterday. That, according to a Secret Service official.
The suspect is now apparently in custody after fleeing the scene where he left behind an AK-47 style rifle, a GoPro camera, and two what appear to be backpacks or bags. The local sheriff's office says the suspect was between 300 and 500 yards from the former president, and we're learning more about his prior run-ins with police and some of the things he said online, which were political.
Yep, we have live team coverage this morning. We have Brooke Singman has the suspect's wild past and run-ins with law enforcement. But first, let's go to Danamarie McNicholl, who joins us outside of Trump International Golf Club to walk us through exactly what happened. Good morning, Danamarie.
Good morning, guys. This is still a very active investigation. Crime scene still remains around the perimeter of the golf course. Many of those roads still closed to the public. Now, we're about 12 to 15 minutes from Mar-a-Lago, where former President Donald Trump lives. And we know golf is something that he loves to do on Sunday. We heard from him on social media, praising Secret Service and local law enforcement for keeping him safe, speaking out about this. Now, another important aspect of this is the map. So you can see how close these golf course holes are to the public street here in West Palm Beach. Palm Beach County Sheriff said Ryan Routh was only about 300 to 500 yards away from the former president, hidden in shrubbery with a gun while he played.
The bubble moves through the golf course, so our agents will get there first, clear it. He noticed that the rifle was pointed out. Our agents engaged. We are not sure right now if the individual was able to take a shot at our agents, but for sure our agents were able to engage with the subject.
FBI and local law enforcement are posted at a mobile command center outside hole 5 and 6. Right now, they're processing evidence, including the rifle found on the scene. Now, in the bushes, this is where they found AK-47 style rifle.
In the bushes where this guy was is a AK-47 style rifle with a scope, two backpacks which were hung on the fence that had ceramic tile in them, and a GoPro, which he was going to take pictures of. So those are being processed right now.
Now, a witness has been a huge help to police in this investigation, who saw 58-year-old Ryan Routh run from the golf course bushes and jump into a black Nissan. The witness gave the plate number to police, who eventually pulled over that suspect on I-95 in Martin County. Vice President Kamala Harris said in a statement yesterday that she is deeply disturbed and will condemn political violence, adding, "We must all do our part to ensure this incident does not lead to any more violence." President Joe Biden commended the Secret Service and their law enforcement partners for keeping the former president safe. Now, as we heard, the acting Secret Service director will be here on the ground in West Palm Beach to do a walkthrough of the site, meet with local law enforcement officers and Secret Service. We're also waiting to hear more details on when that suspect will be in court. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Danamarie, thank you very much.
Okay, Brooke Singman joins us now with more details about the suspect's past, including run-ins with police. Brooke?
Yeah, guys, and he had a few. So former President Trump is safe following this second assassination attempt at Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach yesterday. Fox News obtaining this photo showing Ryan Wesley Ruth, the suspected gunman, moments after his arrest. A Florida sheriff who was on the scene spoke about the suspect's demeanor when he was taken into custody. Listen.
I was at the scene, and he had a very, very kind of detached, flat facial affect. Like, it wasn't bothering him. Blue lights everywhere, helicopter overhead. He never said, "Hey, what's that about? Why did I get stopped?"
The FBI is now taking the lead on the investigation into the scene and the suspect, who we are learning more about. So he is originally from North Carolina, and he moved to Hawaii in 2017. He does have prior arrests for drug possession, driving without a license, expired inspection, and operating a vehicle without insurance. And guys, back in 2002, he barricaded himself in his roofing company's office during a 3-hour standoff with police after a traffic stop. Ruth's son telling the Daily Mail, quote, "He is not a violent person. He's a hard worker, a great dad. He's a great dude, a nice guy." Meanwhile, we are learning the suspect was interviewed by the New York Times back in 2023 when he volunteered to help Ukraine in the war with Russia. That article saying, quote, "Ryan Ruth, a former construction worker from Greensboro, North Carolina, is seeking recruits from among Afghan soldiers who fled the Taliban." As of this morning, the suspect remains in custody as we are learning new details. Guys.
Yeah, I think he's been arrested at least 8 times. But he's a nice guy, all right?
Thank you, Brooke.
Right.
Anytime you're holed up in a house in your background and that's on your resume, it's unbelievable. And on top of that, he says he's an unemployed, low-income housing builder from Hawaii. Who isn't?
NBC uncovered over 100 criminal cases filed against him in North Carolina. So there's a lot going on. It's interesting. We were just talking to the state attorney, David Ehrenberg, down in Palm Beach County. The feds have taken over the case. But in asking what sort of charges he might be facing, attempted assassination, he said it would be hard to do that because the guy did not actually point the gun at Donald Trump because Donald Trump was not visible. Of course, keep in mind the attempt, the gunman, the guy with the gun, who did not shoot it, he didn't shoot it. But he aimed at the agent, and the agent then returned fire. The one thing I want to know, and can we put up the graphic that shows the golf course? Where was the guy's car that he hopped in, the black Nissan? According to what we have heard, it was between the guy with the gun was between hole 4 and 5, and that little street right there between 4 and 5 that runs east and west is Summit. So if I had to guess, his car was probably parked there. And it was probably a passerby who saw a guy running, hopped in the car, and this passerby, this Good Samaritan, took a picture of the car with the license plate, gave it to the cops, and that's how we found the guy.
So that's interesting. When you look at that map, if he was standing between hole 4 and 5, Donald Trump was on hole 5. He was on the green. And so he would have been on the opposite end to the far right of the screen. So if this guy's between 4 and 5, he fired off shots 300 to 500 yards away, the police say.
Well, he didn't fire.
Oh, there were 4. They heard 4 popping noises.
Yeah,
well,
they don't know.
The Secret Service.
Well, do we know for sure he didn't get a shot off?
It sounded like from the state attorney, he did not fire his gun.
So we think that was Secret Service. When they saw the AR through the fence, then they fired those 4 shots.
AK.
Yeah, that's what we know at this time.
I mean, AK, yeah.
I'll add another thing. So they keep on talking about, well, they should get more Secret Service, and why haven't they adjusted? And they have adjusted. So Mike Waltz was briefed on Thursday because he's with the Assassination 1 task force. And they said, we, with President Biden, put presidential-level Secret Service force around Harris and Trump. But yet, when we listened to the press conference yesterday from the sheriff, he said, it's not like he is the president. This is not the level he would have if he's president. So when President Biden makes the decision, they're having a problem with execution. Because if he made that decision, then they're not listening to him, which is more of a problem, which goes right back to Mayorkas.
Well, remember, RFK Jr. also complained about not having Secret Service protection, and he was given more protection after that. We thought things had changed after the first assassination attempt. We need to know, has it changed?
Right.
Does he need more protection? Because he was president at one point and he's running for president.
Right.
And this could be catastrophic if someone were successful.
If I had to guess, I bet, and I don't know this, and we're going to hear from the Secret Service guys today, if I had to guess, this is probably the level of security he had when he was president at that particular club. Because, you don't really, it's impossible to have a cop everywhere outside. And I didn't realize until yesterday that there's not a solid wall, like cinder block, but instead it's a chain link fence. Just anybody.
That might be changing.
Yeah, no kidding.
Our first guest today
said
said
the guy
that
could go right through it.
Our first guest today said if he was president, there would have been security on the outside. Meanwhile, Speaker Mike Johnson joined us an hour ago. He met with the president 3 hours after the incident. Listen to what he said the president's response was in his demeanor.
We arrived there about the time that President Trump did. We spent about 3 hours with him. He was in very good spirits, as you might expect. That's who he is. He's so resilient. No leader in the history of America that has been so attacked and has remained so strong and so resilient. He's one of a kind. He is not going to stop fighting for the American people. I got a briefing from the acting director of the Secret Service, Ron Rowe, within 90 minutes of the event. I was actually sitting with President Trump when he called. We listened to that in detail. And what I understand happened is that those agents that were with him yesterday saw that barrel of that gun between the bushes on a golf course. I mean, you know, that's a difficult thing to spot. Thankfully, they did. But unlike in Butler, they did not pause. They immediately pulled their weapons and fired. I think that's why this guy, the suspect, the shooter, threw the gun in the bushes and ran. Had they not been there, had they not acted so quickly and so decisively, we might be having a different conversation today.
The one thing about the president, you notice, he does best under pressure. I mean, you saw it with the first shooting, second shooting. When things go going crazy around him, that's when he's calmest. If you think about it, maybe the Truth Social or the tweets that he wanted back were when things are quiet. Like in the middle of the night when things are quiet. But when there's stress and there's chaos around him, he has the opposite reaction.
Yeah,
it's like an athlete's reaction.
He immediately put on social media, "I'm safe and well. Nothing will slow me down. I will never surrender. I will always love you for supporting me." And hats off, as you were mentioning, to the witness, the person who took a picture of the car, took a picture of the license plate, notified police. They notified the next county because they knew the guy was driving on I-95 into Martin County. And the Martin County police officers you saw in those pictures pulled him over and they detained him.
Well, and one other thing, and that is the Secret Service. Unlike in Butler, they actually had apparently a drone or drones over the golf course yesterday. Usually when they do something like that, it's tethered. Like when we were at the National Convention in Milwaukee, there was a drone tethered over the arena. So it'll be interesting to see, did that impact anything other than we saw the car drive away?
Well, you know what that means, Steve? You probably see the video leading up to him getting the rifle out.
Right. Yeah. But the problem is you didn't see the gun.
Right.
Or they would have done something. Hats off, and I hope we learn more about this particular agent. You know, how long have they been on the force, the Secret Service, and things like that, because he's just going through, he's looking around, checking the fence line, and there's a guy with a gun, and he squeezed off some shots.
So scary. Both of y'all, you've played with President Bush, you've played with Donald Trump. You'll have to share those stories coming up in the show, but right now.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.